Hello, my name is David Cooke, and I'm going to do this just snapshots of my life and to try to just give some principles that come out of the story. Claire Benson was convinced that no one would buy the church bonds that we had. He was surprised when I was the one who first purchased a few thousand of them because he knew I only made $2.50 an hour. He was amazed. I got 7.5% of my money. So I thought it was a great deal. I'm going to have 8 take-home points. And the take-home point on that one is really pretty simple. Spend less than you get. Wealth comes slowly. And the biblical principle for that is wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but whoever gathers it little by little will increase it. So now we'll move to the 11th grade, and I remember where I was sitting at my mom and dad's house. I remember the window I was looking out, and I was just thinking through my life goals and what I wanted to do. I wanted to do 3 things. I wanted to run a county-wide Bible quizzing program. I wanted to become a physician in a surgical subspecialty because then I thought I'd have extra time to run that quizzing program. And the other thing I wanted was to make a whole lot of money and to put it into a fund where I could take from that fund and pay for missionaries who couldn't get their support any other way. And our pastor at that time said, he gave a talk right around that same time about giving, and he said, tithing, there's no amount mentioned for tithe in the New Testament. It's only peripherally mentioned once. And he said it's mainly from the Old Testament. And if you look at the Old Testament, it's not 10%, but if you figure out all the extra things that they gave to, it turns out to be about 23%. So I decided I'm going to choose 23%, and I'm going to do it on gross, not on after taxes, on pre-tax dollars, and I hope every year I can go up 1%. And if not 1%, at least if I can increase it. And the point on that one is biblical giving does not stop at 10%. So now we'll move to the undergraduate year, and we have a bunch of trophies up there just to remind me of I stayed in Bible quizzing and sometimes would have to move some exams so that I could go on a Bible quiz trip. And Bible quizzing is for high schoolers, and it's where it's competition, and you try to encourage them to take the stick of competition, the carrot of competition, and have them memorize the Bible through it. And so the point on that one is always have a ministry. So now we're going to move to the sophomore year of med school. That's the lady I eventually married. That was a little while back. You can't tell, can you? I found my red notebook from back then. This is a few years back. I found that red notebook, and this is the one where I kept all my expenses and all my income. And this is the page that had my income, and I called it New Tithable Income. You see it right here. And we'll go back to at the top, there's one little section that is AG. I remember I was so excited about this. I'll come to that in just a minute. That was all gift. I got to give that all away. So this is where I would keep track of what was my income. So what kinds of things were income? Well, I made $9 on taking a rider home. And then there was a skin donation for study and pop cans I got to return and salary, scholarship. Made some money on University of Michigan football tickets. You make a little more now. Interest from those church bonds, still was getting some. And then this $2.92 interest on a security deposit from the year before. I remember when that check came in, I was so excited. I thought, I had no idea it was coming. I said, I'm going to make that one all gift. And it turned out it was $2.92, but I was excited that I could do that. I do remember that distinctly. The point on that is give now out of what you have, not later out of what you hope to get. And that's biblical. 2 Corinthians 8:12, and give according to what you have, not according to what you don't have. So I would keep running totals, and you could see I had, at that point I was giving 30%, and here was the church category, and here was youth organizations. These were the three categories, and there was other, and later I called other slush fund. I had different names for it, but that was that fund I was hoping someday to get really big. And then I would put down the amounts that I had given away during that time period, and at the bottom had a running total after I put in the 10% from that into each category. And so there was a net balance here under church of $216 I was to give away, and over here about $250 under other, and under youth organization there was a negative balance, but that's all right. I knew we'd be putting more money in, and so we could give more later from that. Well, keep running totals, and the point on that is to plan to be spontaneous. I knew I had about $500 available I could give, and I knew I had about $250 in a couple different categories, so I could be on the prowl looking for where there might be a need. But you had to plan for that, and that's biblical. On the first day of each week, each one of you should set aside a sum of money in keeping with his income, saving it up so that when I come, no collection will have to be made. Now, before residency, I got done with med school, decided late to go into ophthalmology, so I had a free year after my internship year. And Mom comes into play because I didn't have a job. We were married, but my mom had some really cheap housing, and we didn't have any income, so I didn't have any set job. It turned out I did end up and find some work as a general practitioner back then. But someone had suggested the following. It was two things. One, beware of debt, because God might call you at any moment, and you need to be ready. And if you've got debt, you can't be ready should God call you. So you need to, whatever you got to be ready on short notice, because you're not in charge. God is. And when you take on a lot of debt, you're taking on God's call. And the other was, don't presume on the future. Never borrow more than half on something so that you could easily sell it in a fire sale if God calls you to go somewhere else. And that point is beware of debt. And the verses involved, a couple verses. The borrower is slave to the lender, and if you have no money to pay, even your bed will be taken from underneath you. Then I'm presuming on the future. This was said earlier, these verses, but come on now, you who say today or tomorrow we're going to go to this town and we're going to make a bunch of money, we got this business plan. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. What's your life? It's gone. It's a vapor. So now we're going to move to residency, and my wife and I get up to Minnesota, and we start looking around for churches, and we know that there's a lot of denominations that have Bible quizzing, and none of them in that whole area. We went, I don't know how many churches we went to. We couldn't find one that did Bible quizzing. And so we just said, well, it's just, I remember this just burden. I remember when I started, I said, we're not going to do Bible quizzing. It took so much time out of med school and out of undergrad, and it was always getting in the way. And so I'm just going to learn ophthalmology. And then when I got it done, then I'll do it later. But it's just this burning desire. And so finally I gave in, and we started it. And God was just ready to bless it. We ended up and had 27 churches involved in it. We had 27 teams. 25 years later, they called us back for their celebration. It's still going on. So we were the keynote speakers, and they had over 1,000 kids they had in it. Wow. I was just trying to be faithful. But God had the right people in mind to bring it on and keep it going. Point, always have a ministry. Now we move to, some of you saw Matt earlier. This is the way he looks, slightly younger. So it's our family, and we're getting ready, and we start Great Lakes Eye Care. And now we got a picture, we got a statement. My mother-in-law, why is my mother-in-law come involved here? Because Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan was the carrier that took care of Medicare, and Blue Cross was on strike, and any number I called said, don't worry, it was an automatic number, don't worry, we are processing all claims as normal. But I couldn't figure out how I could get a Medicare provider number. So I went 9 months without any Medicare money. And we finally got a hold of our congressman and got it that way. But we were able to make ends meet from 4 years before that year I had off. Had some odd jobs living with my mom, and our expenses were low. Point, beware of debt. So then we start Great Lakes Eye Care, and God had just decided, and there's so many stories I could go into before this one, but these are just the ones related to money. And so God had decided, I'm going to just bless that boy. I mean, I got this little spot carved out where there's just this huge need, and I'm going to put you in it. And the way I ended up there is pretty unusual. But one of the stories is about a German man. This is in the first year, and he had only one eye. The other eye was prosthetic, and this eye had had a central retinal vein occlusion 10 years before, and his retina doctor had said, don't let anyone ever operate on that eye. It's way too risky. So he came in, and his daughter's translating for him, and it's a black cataract. I can't see the back. And she said, well, he's been told it's too risky. And I said, you know, I don't think it's that risky. Even if I mess it up, I can't make it any worse than you are already. So I ended up and did it, and he came back, and it was one of those stories. You know, he said, I could see the face of my prayer partner for the first time in 4 years, and I could see snowflakes and cars go by, and the family was so excited. They put it in the newspaper, the hospital paper, and the newspaper in town picked it up, and the headlines on it is, new doctor performs risky surgery. Then there was the pain woman, 2 a.m. post-op night. I get a phone call. Oh, my eye hurts. Oh, it's 2 a.m. I didn't say that. I thought it. And I said, well, I was thinking, can it wait till morning? Oh, that's all I could hear. So I said, well, I'll meet you over at the office. And she said, I can't drive. I said, I was thinking that. I said, where do you live? And she didn't live too far from me. And I drove over, and it was a mobile home. So I went up to the door, knocked, and she wasn't ready yet because it took her so long to get on her braces so she could walk. And so she gets on her braces, and she gets out to my old jalopy, and I put her in the car and take her down. And by dawn, the pressure was down, and she was feeling better. And this was before we knew about burping wounds. And so we got her down, and I had no idea she was going to write a letter to the editor about this amazing doctor who was just trying to take care of his own post-op issues. But pretty soon, there were other stories as well, but it was, you have to go see Cooke. It was 10 p.m. when I was finishing some nights. I was so stinking behind. People, we didn't have any room in the waiting room, so we'd tell them, go out to your car and we'll come out and get you when we're ready. By the end of my first year, we had closed the practice to new patients. I needed a partner. I'd only been there a year. And why did that happen? I don't know. But the verse came to mind, whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. And whoever's dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with much. So if you've not been trustworthy in handling worldly wealth, who will trust you with true riches? And if you've not been trustworthy with someone else's property, who will give you property of your own? Thought on this is obedience with little things brings blessing in big. Surgery Center. 20 years ago, I had a dream. It was that we'd get a surgery center. And so I applied for a surgery center with 17 other doctors signing on with me locally. The hospital went ballistic. They scared off all the other doctors. They withdrew. I had a mess on my hand. I just gave up on the idea. 4 or 5 years ago in our office, we split into planning teams about who we want to be and what we want to do. And every department came up with their list of the things we needed to do. And when even the cleaning department and the medical records department said, we need a surgery center, I gave in and said, all right, And the owners agreed. So I said, now Michigan has a certificate of need law, so you can't just go build one. You have to apply to the state. And the way it works in our area is you can't get a surgery center without hospital approval in our little area. So I had tried that once before, but the only way we could do it would be to go south about 30 minutes down to South Bend, Indiana. But I started meeting with the CEO of the hospital, and I told him, we need to have a surgery center because of who we need to be, and we need to go into it 60-40 with you. And they said, because of the way you treat our patients and the way you treat the emergency room, you never ask about what our patients have in the way of insurance. You cover our community well. I thought, wow, that's cool. And then he said, but it has to be 50-50. And I just thought that's just not the right answer. And so we got together as owners and we said, nope, we drew the line in the sand, 60-40 us, 60. And the hospital said, well, we can't do that. So we said, well, we're going to have to go to South Bend. They said, okay. So we went to South Bend and we looked around, and after a year we kept running all these snags, and the partner said, you got to go back. And I said, well, what's the new line in the sand? And they said 50-50. And I said, really? All right, well, two things. One, I want to go on record that you are wrong. And number two, you're my authority. There are four of us who are owners. I'm 1/4. So you three outweigh me. So God speaks through authority. Therefore, I will do it. I will obey. I'll submit. And no one will know that I disagree. But I'm hanging on to that 50-50 comment till the very last minute. I went back to the CEO, and he said to me, we've been thinking about it. We think that it's the right thing for you to get a surgery center, and we want to try to help you, and we think you should be 100% owner. Obedience in little things brings blessing in big. I did not want to obey my partners, but I knew it was the right thing. The way a CON works is you have to have a certain number of cases. You have to have blah, 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 blah. There's certain rules. And the hospital said, we'll help you because the GI guys have extra cases in their facility, and we can add those to the few that you have over and above at our facility, and you'll be able to have enough. So I had talked to the GI guys, and they said, well, we're willing to do it, but only if the hospital asks us. So the hospital asked us. They said, yes, we're willing to do it. Yes. We had our CON. With one little detail, I had to just make sure that this was okay with everybody. The GI guys would have to sign a form that says we're going to commit to do our cases there at that surgery center, and they had no intention of actually doing them there. But they didn't have to. Our CON lawyer said it's just a game that Michigan has set up to take care of, make sure there's not too many surgeries in a particular area, and so it doesn't matter. There's nothing even in the law that says that you have to go back and see where did they do them. Who did the cases there. There's not even enough. Do you have enough there to keep it going? It's just to open it, to get approval to open it. And so she said, you're within the spirit of the law. We went around the room of the 10 of us in the room, and the owners, the doctors, all the doctors and the 2 administrators, 8 were in favor and 2 were opposed because they said felt it was dishonest. We were not being dishonest, but we were enabling someone else's dishonesty and deception, and we were benefiting from it. Both said they could support us in it, so okay, good, we're good. But a couple weeks later, one of them said, God's been waking me up at night. I have to write this letter. And he wrote us a 5 or 6 page letter, and it said, I think you're wrong. I just have to tell you, I think you're not right in what you're doing. So we owners got together and said, so what do you think? And one of them goes, I've been trying really hard to think how bad this is, and the worst I can come up with is going 75 miles an hour in a 70-mile-an-hour zone. And I said, well, for me, I'm out. Because I've been trying to figure out, spirit of the law, letter of the law, how much am I in favor of this way versus this way? And I'd been confused, and I said, it moved it into a new realm now. It's in the realm of if eating meat causes my brother to offend, I will not eat meat. So I go, that's God's leading. I'm out. I've been trying to figure out where was God going, not how can we make it work. And if God's going that it's not it, I said, I'm out. You guys can go ahead. Well, we decided we weren't going to do it. So that was it. It was over. The 20-year dream. There were 4 weeks left to the hospital CON, to the final chance we could get this CON. And before the deadline, I went back to the hospital CEO. I said, thanks for offering this offer to talk to the GI guys. I said, but they did say yes because you asked them, but we can't accept their offer because we're not unified that it's ethical. We do, however, have one option, and only one. You can shut down one operating room and give us those cases so we can then go take it and form our surgery center. So 1 week later, they agreed. The hospital shut down 1 OR of their 4 OR operating room. 1 month after that, we had our CON. I thought I was only going to get blessing and obeying. The blessing of God's peace. We got the blessing of the surgery center too. Giving is great fun. Zimbabwe general surgeon has no ACE scan. Fine, let's go. Let's go take him one. Teach him how to use it. He's doing cataracts. He's a general surgeon. We get to ask missionaries, how's your support? What are your needs right now? They said, nobody ever asks us that. They're always afraid we'll bring it up. Paul says about the Macedonian believers, this caught us totally off guard when they asked how we can help. It was entirely their idea, totally spontaneous. God loved it. Honduras Clinic thinks they can't do more than 4 cases per day? Fine. Let's take them to Ervin Eye Hospital where one doc does 100. Let's show them how to do that. Some conduits for giving: Dallas Theological Seminary Foundation, National Christian Foundation, Community Foundation. Through these conduits, you can write one check. We were writing, 30 a month or 90. I don't remember the number because my wife wrote them all. Some huge number. Now we just write one at the end of the year, and we tell them how to split it up. They make the payments quarterly, annually, every other month, every month. We get a tax deduction at the end of the year. They keep on giving when we're gone, the way we've got it set up. And they have some parameters so that if people who decide how to give it after us, like our children, if they decide they want to start going kind of astray, there's some set parameters, some theological, doctrinal things that they put in place. Upper limits, 90% is impossible in my book. Michigan taxes you on 100% of your cash gifts. USA taxes you on anything over 50%. Your first 50% is deductible, but you give over that, it's not. You get some carry forward. So let's say you're at 65% or 70% giving. You get some carry forward for that stuff over 30, but after 7 years it goes away, and if you're always giving away that much, it goes away. But when I don't know if I explained that well, but the point is you're going to have to pay taxes on the money that you gave away. So you can't give away 100% because you have to go earn more money to pay the taxes on half of it. But when Katrina hit, the last 3 or 4 months of that year, they said, as long as you give to an organization itself, you can give 100%. So we did that year. And we said, let's use this as our chance. We've been trying to build up this rainy day fund. Next year, we'll give all of our money into the rainy day fund, and this year, we'll give double to certain organizations, and we'll write them a letter and tell them, now, this is your operating funds or your whatever funds for 2 years. And the next year, we just give it to the rainy day fund. And I say this for a reason, because they didn't use it right. One of the couples that we know in their organization, they're hand to mouth. They don't have money for food a lot of times. And they wrote this letter right after we gave our gift, and it says, it's amazing, we had unexpected money came in, so we put in a new bathroom. And we look and we go, that was supposed to be your money to eat for next year. And we didn't tell them that. So I was in a board meeting of another group where we'd given some of the funds, and they said, we got extra money this year, so let's fly there's a quizzing group, let's fly this whole team at great expense from one coast to the other coast with a whole group of all their people because we got all this extra money this year. And so I'm sitting there, I go, what should I say? And what verse hit me was, don't let your left hand know what your right hand does. These guys didn't know I gave that gift. And so I just go, well, I just said, did the donor give any stipulations on that money? They said, no, well, nothing we know about. So I said, now what? Well, I guess God didn't want us to give much to the rainy day fund. See, if I've already given that money away when I put it in the slush fund, I'm giving away somebody else's funds. That's not my money. I already gave it away. I put it in that fund. I just get a chance to give it away. I'm giving away somebody else's money. So if the recipient doesn't use it wisely, it is not my problem. I gave the money to God, not to that person. So I'm not the one burned. That's their problem. If they didn't use it wisely, they got to answer to God for that, not me. But I would be a poor steward if I kept giving to them, maybe. But it doesn't bother my heart when they messed up. So I use that thing about that 100%, not to say we did a lot in that year or that we're special, but to say sometimes you get burned in your giving. It's okay if you gave it to God. It's not your problem. Someday, by the way, we're not going to get any tax deduction for anything. Last story. So Tim and I went to Zimbabwe to give this A scan, and on the way back, we're in the car, and the car breaks down. And the car is also the emergency room ambulance transporter, and we're taking this lady and her nurse. It's got a sick baby here, and the baby's too sick for the hospital where we were, and they're taking him into the capital city. So as we're on our way back to catch our airplane, the car breaks down, it's hot. I say to the nurse, I'm looking at this mom who's got this sick baby, and mom just delivered, and she's not feeling very well. And I said, well, I've got some bread, but I don't have any butter. She's got bread. She goes, oh, that's okay. She only gets butter one day a year, on Christmas. And I went, I just don't get poverty. Butter, only one day a year? Butter's a given. It's okay. She only gets it one day a year. And I just thought, I'm so overwhelmed with the poverty and the needs. What's my little gift going to do? It can be so overwhelming. I'm only one, but I am one. I can't do everything, but I can do something. That which I can do, I ought to do. And that which I ought to do, by the grace of God, I will do. You guys want to hand out those sheets? So here's my challenge, 4 questions. What percent does God want you to give to His kingdom to rock the world for Him? So these cards just have my 8 points and these 4 questions. So you can take it home and throw it away. I don't care. But if you want to remember them, y'all have them for you. Those are the only things that matter. What percent does God want you to give to His kingdom? What percent of your revenue, of your total, not of what you take home, what percent of your total are you actually giving to God? So what does He want you to give? What are you actually giving? Why is your current percent as low as it is? And then the last one, what's your plan to try to increase it? So just have a plan, see what you can do, try to increase it, maybe how God might want it. And this is I have 1 minute left in my talk. I like the timer on here, thank you. So I couldn't help but think last night when I saw those 30-some people standing up there at that meeting, I thought, wow, this is so cool. And I knew there was a chance we could give to it, so I asked Denise, raise your hand. I asked Denise, so how much money was given toward that project? She said $3,300. Now I know $3,300 did not cover that cost. And I'm not here to challenge you to that, but I'm here to just give that to you and let God prick your conscience. But I do want to, and if you want to give to it, Denise says, oh, we'll even take credit card. But I did want to challenge the 30-some people who were here standing up front of us, that You know, the Bible says that the workman is worthy of his meat or his salary, and you're supposed to give to those who have given to you. So just to challenge you guys in your future years, put that in your little giving cap, COS, because I'm going to be gone. Half of us will be gone, but you guys will still be here. You may never come back to this meeting, but just put that in your cap. If you got something from this, give to those who gave to you. So when you get a chance to give. And one of the things is, do your giving now what you got, $2.82, whatever that was. Just give 10% of that, or whatever your percent is. God will use it. God may just use it to change your heart. If I challenge you in the future, just put that in yourself. I'm going to give to COS so somebody else can do that for me. And then I challenge you people in the COS, why is it only 30? There's got to be more believers than that out there. I'm not in the COS thing, but I would challenge you, man, look for more. Thanks.